If you want to learn the whole package, you want to learn the technique of arm wrestling, you want to learn how to get strong, you want to learn how to train for super matches versus tournaments, you want to learn about top rolling and hooking, and then the small intricate details between the 7 different types of top rolls there are. I'm pretty smart at that stuff, all of it. Now, the strength training aspect, I always say, listen to everything Todd Hutchins says. But where I would say Todd Hutchins has a little bit missed the mark in his training is not the philosophy behind his training. The philosophy behind his training is perfect, or as close as you could get to perfect. I just wish he would apply that same philosophy towards his back pressure and his hand and wrist control as he had for his side pressure.
Right.
But his side pressure is crazy, right? I mean, it is levels above anyone near him. Me, him, and John BRZENK, we've had 2 conversations where I wish to God there was somehow video of these conversations because they were awesome. One of them was in my cabin in Utah. The 3 of us, our wives, Kevin Bongard and his wife were on their way down, but they weren't quite there yet. And we're talking about training. And of course, you got John over here who says, table time, table time, table time.
Yeah.
And you got Todd over here says, no, gym, 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 Louis Simmons, Westside Barbell. And both of them are like, you're wrong, you're whatever. And we're a half a bottle into the whiskey by now. And fortunately, you know, even when I've had a couple of drinks, my brain still works pretty good. And it dawned on me because I've been training with John for 20 years. And I had at that point been training with Todd for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years.
Right.
And it dawned on me, if you just listen to the philosophy in which they both train, they both actually train the same. John just does it with a hand, and Todd does it with weights. But their philosophy is somewhat similar.
Right.
They have max effort days, and they have speed or volume days. And so does John. So, but then we had a counter, and I'm gonna turn this around for a second. Can you guys see this counter right here?
Yep.
Okay. So that counter, oh shoot, this counter is probably, I don't know, 40 inches wide. So now I want you to imagine John on one side, Todd on the other side. And at this point, Todd had been beating John in practice, right? And everyone's fired up now because Todd's fired up that his training is perfect, and John's fired up that Todd doesn't know what he's talking about. And they're like, let's arm wrestle. Let's see whose training is better. And John grabs a hold of Todd again across this 40-inch wide table.
Yeah.
And John just back drags him to his side of the table. So now imagine how far Todd's arm is away from him.
Yeah.
You know?
Probably off the ground.
Oh, it's like, it's wet, you know. Todd's over here starting like this. And the next thing you know, John drags him over and Todd's out here trying to go sideways. It was crazy. And, you know, John's just laying him down and John's like, tell me about that training now. Tell me about that. But it was so funny. It was hilarious. And then there was another time when we're in John's house. The 3 of us, again, had a couple of cocktails. Same argument, you know, table time versus this. And at this point, Todd had, you know, he was the best in the WAL in the 195s. And his hook was so far up ahead of anyone else's hook in the 195s. I mean, I said, Todd, stop training your hook. You need to focus on your top roll. You need to focus exclusively on your top roll. And John's like, no, you need to just keep focusing on what works. And I'm like, Todd, you can stop training your hook for a year and still kill everybody in a hook in your weight class. But your top roll sucks. You need to work on your top roll. You need to work on your hand and your wrist. And I really believe that if he would have done that from that conversation on, he'd probably beat Steven Lorette easily in that match, you know.
Where it was a pin.
There was a lot of controversy pins, and
the boy quit round one.
Yeah. And he beats Jerry Cataret. I'm trying to think who else, because he did beat everybody else. But he would have developed that hand and wrist strong enough to where he really just could have just taken people right down. Yeah. But now, finally, Todd is developing his top roll. He's just, you know, it's just a slow development, but he's finally developing his top roll.
Yeah, better late than never, I guess.
Yeah. They say his top roll is like a glacier, so
yeah.
So slow, yeah.
That's in every way possible. The way it builds, the way it moves, the way it
yeah. I mean, the way John trains, it really isn't rocket science.
Yeah.
I mean, he would literally, you know, he would grab an arm wrestler and he would hold him in whatever position he wanted to hold him. And he let the arm wrestler do whatever they want. And he would just hold. And eventually that arm wrestler would quit. And then he'd immediately grab another one and hold. And eventually that arm wrestler would quit. And he'd just work around the room until eventually he got tired. Yeah. And he would fight, and then he'd lose. And then he'd go sit down for 15 minutes. He'd come back up and he'd do it again. Wow. Now, he did, you know, so he was getting to he was getting to failure. He was getting to his failure point. It took him a long time to get there, but he would get, but he would recoup. When he wanted to do a quote unquote max effort, that's when he's like, Bob or someone, come here, grab me with two hands. And then he would just, you know, fire straight back, or if he wanted to work the hook. But if he's firing straight back, he'd fire it back as hard as he possibly could.
Yeah.
Or as long as he possibly could. What I'm just got him completely locked up. And, you know, he could, you know, most people, you know, when you're going anything over 70%, blood flow stops, lactic acid starts to build, and you've got to quit after, you know, 12, 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that's when he would, you know, stop. Or to make it fun, I used to grab him with two hands and he would go and he would just keep going until I thought I could let go with one hand and then be able to hang with him.
Yeah.
It was so many times, like I'm holding them and I let go and I'm like, oh, nope, can't do it yet. Bring it back. And then I finally, you know, let go. And then what was interesting about this, and this comes into the mental aspect, is as soon as I let go and we were actually able to have a match, now the competitiveness kicked in, which means the adrenaline spiked. And my adrenaline spikes because all of a sudden I actually think I can win. John's adrenaline spiked because he's like, there is no freaking way I'm losing to Bob.
Yeah.
And it allows that mental aspect
to come,
you know, and it just, a byproduct of that is more muscle fibers fire. And at the end of the day, you get stronger, which is what we're all trying to achieve.
Yeah.